But if you realize, as you've just been describing, that death is not an end; it's an end to a chapter in a very big book.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, no, it's just whatever your faith is. It's interesting actually because both my parents were Christian, and I taught them. I said, does it ever get discussed, the afterlife? About what happens to us all afterwards? And they said no. It's just like only with Christ. Christ was the only person they talk about who came back, who rose from the dead, and that's it. And I found that kind of like, I thought, wow, that's strange. I thought, the fact that there's a faith there, I thought that it would be interested to explore that at least, which it
yeah.
was. Yeah,
Well, of course, they have beliefs. Like either you're going to hell for eternity or you're going to heaven for eternity, and all this. I was listening to a podcast the other day. Called Closer to Truth, which is one of my favorite podcasts. And the guy was interviewing these people from different religions about their beliefs of the afterlife. And he was interviewing this Muslim guy, and he was going to this elaborate description of all the different things that are supposed to happen, and where you go and what happens to your body and all kinds of stuff, which seemed to me to be extremely speculative. And at the end, the interviewer said, well, this is amazing what the human mind can conjure up. And the guy said, no, 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 we believe this. This is the truth. But then he went on to interview a whole bunch of other people who had different truths.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
So,
yeah,
belief doesn't really cut it. But you and people like you have had experience, which makes it more than a belief.
yeah. Well, that's. I hope so. I hope it does. Encourage people because for me, that's where it's at. It's not like me trying to say, "Hey, I had this amazing experience. You got to hear it." It's more like if I can at least help somebody get past that fear of death. And for example, there was I didn't realize how so many people do have a fear of death, young people as well. I
Sure.
mean, I did
Everybody
this
does.
thing. Yeah, exactly. So everybody has, but not everybody. A lot of people suppress it as well, though, in all fairness. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't even want to think about death. They don't want to think about what's happening afterwards, and I've seen that untangle in people when they've lost their loved ones because there's, they're fearing that they don't know what's going to happen to them now. Is that it? Are they going to end up, just floating around in some void, or all those different things that might be going through their minds, rather than really exploring it. And and uh, and I just feel that we just don't do that in Western civilization. Anyway, we don't explore death, and I think that it's not like we should be getting up talking about it every day after our morning coffee. But I think it's good to at least embrace it and talk about it like we are now, and talk about
Yeah.
death, because it absolutely helps. Because we prepare for everything else in life. We prepare for birth, marriage, even taking our driving lessons and passing our test, all those different things. But we don't prepare for the one thing that's going to come to us all, which is the end of this stage of the journey.
That Buddhist saying, die before you die. And, what they're saying actually, and Hindus have similar comments, is that through certain spiritual practices, you can transcend your individuality, which is a kind of a mini death. And obviously, your body is not in any danger, but you get to peep into the universal ground of existence, and which is what someone might experience when they physically die. But then you come back to life, and you can integrate that experience so that you're in a liberated state, a state of freedom in the midst
Yeah.
of living a normal life in the world.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. It can change your mindset. If you've got this heavy weight that you're denying, which is like what's going to happen, not only to me, but to my loved ones, if you can help to release that, I think it changes like your whole outlook on life. It has done
Yeah.
with me because I certainly didn't even think about it. Death didn't even come into my equation. All I was thinking of was like, where's the next paycheck coming from? Where's the next, great relationship going to come from? And all these different things are all very linear.